Okay. Frankie says I have to look in the camera for this entire episode, which is episode 149. This is the Token CEO podcast. It is Thursday, April 29th. Did I just say that? It's Thursday, April 29th. We are presented by Sports Research. I actually talked to the Sports Research people this week. We had a nice 13-minute conference call. It's my favorite kind of conference call where you like get on the phone and you've booked out a half hour and you're like sharing blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's a nice thing about direct response companies. They do not like to waste time, which I like. So if you like Sports Research, we've got two great things going on. We are giving away 150 sticks of Sweet Sweat. Sweet Sweat is the product you rub on your body if you want to increase circulation, assist in recovery, finish your workout drenched in sweat, and essentially you want that area to go away. We are giving away the product that helps you do that. If you go to sportsresearch.com and use code NRC at checkout, you can get a Sweet Sweat stick for free. If you're not into dripping in sweat or getting rid of areas you hate on your body, I have many, you can just go to sportsresearch.com straight up and use code TOKEN to get 30% off at checkout. So here's what's going on today's episodes. We got a couple headlines to talk about, and then we have a killer guest. Emily Lazar is joining us. She is a chief mastering engineer. You're probably saying, what is that? The woman is accomplished. She's Grammy Award winning. She is widely recognized. She's worked with anyone and everyone in the music space who's cool or people care about. Rolling Stones, Tiesto, Wu-Tang, John Mayer, the Chainsmokers, Beck. You name it, she's done it. She is a badass. There are only 2.9% of audio engineers that are women. And frankly, the number is even worse if you look at people who work in technical roles in music. So we're going to talk about what she does, why it's cool, how she got there, what keeps her motivated, and how more women can get big roles behind the scenes in music. So that's Emily Lazar coming up. Before we get into Emily, we are going to talk about a couple things. So the first is we launched our first NFT. So everyone crawling up our ass about what our NFT strategy is can just settle down. We have a $15,000 bid for a pizza review. We have a $15,000 bid for a pizza review of Block's Deli in Miami. Anybody who's seen that is it's a very funny pizza review. We've got the guy who interrupts Dave, and that guy happens to have no arms and left Dave Portnoy speechless, which very rarely happens. We have been thinking a lot about the NFT space. I have agents hitting me up all the time about how they can help us get into NFTs. You know, I think there's a couple things about it. I think there are people who are being wildly innovative around NFTs and thinking about the things that people can do with virtual tokens. And then I think there are people who are just trying to cash in and monetize on something that's very trendy right now. So we're playing around with this pizza review. We'll see how it does. Obviously, you could see us doing more around Dave. You could see us doing more around all of our shows. I also think that we could get involved in a way that is more innovative, honestly, versus just owning a piece of Barstool. I think we ask people to own a lot of pieces of Barstool, whether it's things to listen to or things to watch or merch to buy or hats to wear. So we're a little bit sensitive to that, or hats to wear or bets to place. So we're a little bit sensitive to how much we ask people to do. But obviously this is a place that isn't going away. I actually had a great conversation about NFTs the other day whereby, you know, if you think about photos on your phone, like you used to take photos, you would go take the film to the drugstore, you would have them printed out, you would buy frames, you would put them on your shelves or on your walls, and like pictures were things that were physical. If you think about all the pictures that are being taken in the world right now, they generally live on your phone, and you show them off on your phone or you show them off in your social media. So you can imagine that other things that you would own and you used to have around you physically will now just surround you virtually. So obviously a big space and a space that we'll get into, and we'll see how we get there. Other big story from this past week is DraftKings. So DraftKings announced a multi-year deal to include distribution, monetization, and sponsorship with Meadowlark Media. So Meadowlark Media, terrible name in my humble opinion, is John Skipper's latest brainchild. So he's doing that with former ESPN host Dan Le Batard. They are creating a new media entity. DraftKings is clearly now going to be paying for that. So good for them for getting a $50 million check over 3 years. The word is that there were 6 companies in a bidding war over the rights. Le Batard interestingly said that he chose DraftKings because all of the other partners would have put his show behind a paywall. So that's kind of interesting. I think it's important. I don't know how big the Le Batard show is. I mean, there's obviously big numbers reported, but I think a lot goes in there, which leads to another interesting topic, which is it's really hard to believe the metrics around anyone's shows when you're looking at internet audience, because you really don't know what goes into what. Like, we see this every month when we look at the PodTrack rankings, and NPR is bundling radio in with their podcasts, or Le Batard is building the syndication of his ESPN show into his audio numbers or whatever. Not saying it's fraudulent. I'm just saying it's messy, just like the internet. But it's also really interesting to see all of the bidding wars. I think there's this convergence of digital talent and gambling that are coming together in a way that is really, that is incredibly, if not breathtakingly lucrative. It's also interesting to see that all of the sports betting companies are trying more and more aggressively to get into the content business as they realize that the marketing dollars put on television and or on billboards or splattered around all of the DMAs that allow legalized betting, that those have low ROI and that content is a way more efficient way to convert an audience. That's obviously something we know and we have done very well with. But so interesting to see that come to life. I'm curious about Meadowlark. I don't know. I don't know. I think they, to be successful, probably need much younger talent, many more personalities and voices, and people who can bring fans from the internet. We'll see if it happens. I think to make this deal worthwhile, he would need to drive like 170,000 subs to DraftKings if they were to look at it on an ROI basis. So anyways, interesting to see how that'll come together. I think the other thing that's interesting that's happening is that the gambling companies, used to create, when you created a TV show, you got a big automotive company to come in, or the tech telco companies came in, or you would have a big CPG company come in. And now what's interesting is the people coming in are the gambling companies, right? You see it with the WWE. WWE did a massive deal with DraftKings. That is their showcase. That is a showcase flagship partnership. You look at Le Batard's show, like they're trying to launch Meadowlark. They're not launching it with P&G. They're not launching it with Verizon. They're not launching it with Ford. They're launching it with DraftKings. So I always think the thing that's interesting is like who has the biggest marketing dollars and budgets. And obviously the gaming companies are at the forefront of that now. I think education companies in the future are going to have a lot of money. I think that telehealth is going to be a massive, massive category. But right now, it's all about gambling as states, as obviously states legalize betting and as those companies look to grow their database. So this was something we obviously were on the early side of, oddly. This is something obviously we were on the early side of, but I think you will only see more of this, and you will especially see it in anyone and anything surrounding sports, which obviously Skipper and Le Batard do. My last update is a small clarification on the bleeping of the name of the Ben Shapiro show in our last episode. That was compliments of Jordan, not a massive conspiracy. Thank you, Jordan.
I don't know if I should apologize or just kind of... No, you just talk. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay. So anyway, we had not yet announced that Dave was going on the Ben Shapiro show. Dave talked about it on his show this week. We obviously like shows with great reach, so Ben Shapiro in that regard is a no-brainer. Jordan bleeped out the name of the show because it wasn't public yet. We just had a little bit of a postmortem in that the bleep carries some significance with it. So maybe we will just cut the sentence or use a different audio cue. But I have been bitching at Jordan for quite some time now about using audio sounds in our pod. So I'm going to give her like a neutral on this one. All right. So before we get into Emily, let's just talk about Shady Rays. I actually left for work the other morning and I grabbed a pair of sunglasses off my shelf. I had bought these sunglasses in South Carolina and I love them. They kind of look, my grandmother had like eye surgery or something and she had those big, those like Lady Gaga sunglasses where they like extend across your entire head and out for several inches on either side. So I grabbed a pair. I thought they were the pair from South Carolina. They were not. They were Shady Rays. I thought they looked awesome. I actually didn't even realize that they were Shady Rays until I put them down and I saw the PMT symbols on there. So what's awesome about Shady Rays is they make an awesome sunglass. They look very expensive. I mistook them. I mistook them for my designer sunglasses. And what I love about them is they're so solid. So I was like, you can look down, you can look up, you can look side to side, you can try to go incognito, which is very much on the top of my mind right now. So Shady Rays are perfect for that. So if you're looking for a pair of sunglasses, one that you don't have to pay a lot of money for, and two that are high quality, Shady Rays is a brand for you. They have an incredible warranties, one of the best warranties in all of eyewear. They do free returns and exchanges. It's super easy to buy. I love them. I will be wearing them. I will buy a lot of them. You can get 2 pairs for $48. If you use code TOKEN, you can get 50% off at shadyrays.com. So obviously it's time for summer. It's getting sunnier out. I think it's like 80 degrees outside today. I'm wearing a blue, I was wearing, I can't lie anymore because I'm on the video. This morning I was wearing a wool sweater, turtleneck wool sweater, which I've since taken off, but I did wear it with my Shady Rays. So go to shadyrays.com. Use code TOKEN and get 50% off 2 or more pairs. That's buy one, get one free. Who doesn't love that? They look great. They're super affordable. They're very durable, and they will set you up to look great this summer.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm so good. Oh, look at you. All set up.
I know. We're trying to pretend like we're professional. We're not really. How you doing?
I'm so good. Wait, hold on. I'm just trying to get you into the screen here so I can actually pretend I'm having a real conversation with you. There we go.
Are those your speakers?
Those are speakers.
They're fucking huge.
They're huge. It's like, I always make this joke that, do you remember the movie Spaceballs?
Yeah.
So when I first walked into the room with them, I was like, it's like Dark Helmet,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, totally.
It's like Spaceballs, the speaker. Yeah.
I guarantee neither one of you know what the movie Spaceballs is.
Know what it is. I just haven't seen it.
Age.
They're like 12. They're like 12.
Wisdom, beauty before youth.
Yep.
Oh.
That's like Working Girl. Do you remember the movie Working Girl?
Are you kidding?
The best.
Come on.
These guys have no idea. What was the other movie the other day? Pretty Woman. They hardly knew about.
Oh, you know what? I was talking to somebody on our digital team about 9 to 5.
The best.
And I was like, yeah, it's like when you knock the pencil cup off and he was like glazed over.
Do you guys even know who Dolly Parton
Nothing.
Erika.
Oh,
okay.
Come on, please.
All
I
right.
made a great record with Dolly Parton. Loved Dolly
Did you?
Parton. I did. Yeah.
She's a badass.
Dumplin'. It was a soundtrack for Dumplin'. Yeah.
Did you love working with her?
Brilliant. Believe it or not, I didn't get to meet her until after we were done.
Yeah. You're kind of toiling in the trenches of music, would you say, or no?
Toiling in the trenches. I thought you were going to go to toilet. No, yeah, I'm definitely a toiler.
I love that though. You're like the gerbil in the computer that like makes it all happen and then wah, it comes out.
Well, yeah. Well, it's obviously not in just a computer, but yeah, it's crazy. It's cool, It's like that frosting on the cake, and then all of a sudden goes, oh, it's done. It sounds, real.
Yeah, so let's actually give it the credit it's due versus comparing you to like a troll and a gerbil. So Emily, you are
I like the fact that we didn't even like officially start.
No, we don't officially start. We just talk and then
you're just like me.
You'll be like,
you're just like me. I love it. All right,
let's go.
Brilliant.
All right, you're such a badass. I'm so excited about you. I have so much respect for you. So before we start, just explain audio engineering.
Oh, okay, right, in a half an hour.
Yeah, that's right.
First of all, the feeling is completely mutual, and I have to tell you, I was thrilled when when we heard that we would get a chance to speak, because my son is a hockey player. There's a very big part of my existence anyway, the whole Barstool family, believe it or not.
Awesome.
And which is kind of an interesting thing. And my son was beyond excited. He was like, "Whoa, you're talking to them?" And I was like,
Oh,
well,
that's
it's a little
awesome.
different. I was like, a little different, but yeah, So yeah, and then I got to tell him that, you were in charge of this thing. And he was like, "Oh, another woman, like, great," because he's got a mom who's
He's got a mom.
he's got a weirdo mom.
Yep, got a weirdo mom. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So why don't I answer your question in a more specific way so that we actually get an answer that we can
do
in 2 seconds. But let's talk about what mastering is, as opposed to what audio recording is, right?
Yep.
So within that framework of making a recording or an album, a couple of things happen along the way. You record it, there's a producer there telling you, do this, do that, or maybe we should make it sound like this, or overall vibe. And then there's a mixer there's engineers involved in then capturing that moment. Then there's a mixer who mixes all the different tracks together that maybe you layered in, like, I don't know, tambourine and someone singing and drums and guitar and all these different things. And someone sits around trying to figure out how much of each of those things,
the levels,
how they should sound, even like the qualities of what they sound like. And maybe the effects that are on those instruments to make them sound a certain way. So that's mixing. And then at the end, we get to mastering. And mastering is this, people are always like, "Oh, it's like rocket science, it's like a dark art. What the heck goes on in there?" And the truth is, it's kind of like this amalgamation of those two things before, where you're, at least the way I do it anyway, I kind of come to it with a really obviously, so I come to it with a level of creativity, as opposed to, kind of as a technician. I come to it creatively first and foremost, and then try to serve the song and the story that's trying to be told. And so from there, I use the technology to try to help elevate what was happening, both sonically and technically and emotionally in the song. And there's lots of ways to do that,
So you're getting all the pieces brought to you.
I get each. So let's say we're making an album, I'll get versions of the album, different mixes that people have done, and then kind of knit it together and create a story of the album. So there's sequencing involved, and there's leveling involved, and there's EQ, and there's compression, and all sorts of technical stuff to make things sound the best that they can. And then there's moments where I say, just wanted to point out that maybe if you changed your sequence, or if you did this, the story would kind of tell this way. Or so I kind of jump in and say, give my opinion. Sometimes it's, not completely unnecessary, and people have already figured out exactly what they want to do. And
but you understand the emotion. Sure. Like, you're essentially, you are the person who is almost dialing all of the pieces of emotion together to create the one big story, the story of a song or the story of an album.
Well, I think it's a collaboration, right? So the producer is the first part, and actually the artist, the songwriter, the person who's like vomiting this amazing feeling out at us with all of its, crusty edges and not perfected stuff. And then there's all these different people that kind of come up along the way. And I'm the finisher.
You're the finisher.
I need my own theme song.
You're the closer. I love it.
I'm the closer.
What would your theme song be?
Oh my God, that's a good question. I think it probably would change from project to project and day to day. Some people have said, what does it take to do your job? And sometimes I say, some days it takes a scalpel, and sometimes it takes a hatchet.
That's
right. It really depends on what's happening and who I'm dealing with.
And how did you get into this? Were you a musician yourself? Like, how did you get into this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was a singer, songwriter, had a band. I grew up in a very musical house. My mom was a guitar teacher. And so I was literally in the corner of the room playing ukulele while her students were playing. I'm sure it was very annoying, but that was,
you went with it.
That's what was happening.
You had a weird mom.
It's my role. I had a weird mom. I am a weird mom. I had a weird mom. She was a great mom, actually. And then my dad was that guy who like loved audiophile equipment and stuff. He played some instruments too, and he would like noodle on top of her. She was kind of like Mr. Holland's Opus before my brother and I were born. She worked in Harlem. She taught all these kids how to play all these instruments, whether she knew how to play them or not. She would get them and like, excite them at the whole process. And so, whatever. Then my brother and I were born, and my dad was that guy like who like loved the cool stereo equipment, and he'd come up to you with like crazy headphones and slap them
Everybody
on
knows that
kid.
dad. Everybody knows that
so
dad. There's
like,
always that dad.
I don't know if he still exists, but like
he still exists.
Okay.
I think he DJs like he DJs his like hedge fund friend parties. Oh. You know what I mean? Like that's
totally.
Like, and his, you know what I mean?
Totally.
And he's like talking about his Tesla for like the audio quality. You know what I mean? That's like the rich version of that dad. But
he doesn't give up. He doesn't give up the dream. So anyway, my dad would throw the big headphones on me and say like, "Listen to the bass in that one, MZ," and I'd be like. And I thought it was normal. I thought it was totally normal. I thought like, every
kid was getting that.
No. So yeah. So that's where it started. And then it kind of, was this amalgamation of the two of them. And I became this singer, songwriter, in a band, was doing a lot of theater, just doing all kinds of things. And then really kind of got into rock. And I was like, this is my thing. I was always kind of my parents were total folkies too. So like I grew up listening to everything.
Like Peter, Paul, and Mary.
And my first show was Pete Seeger.
That's awesome. Mine was Arlo Guthrie. Do you remember Arlo Guthrie?
Of course. I have Arlo Guthrie t-shirts. Thank you. Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And of course, I mean, my parents would always remind me that, look, it's really Woody Guthrie.
That's right. I had the same. I got the same lecture. You're like a watered down version.
We might be related. We might be related. All right, love it. So anyway, yes, I was that person, and then it kind of, marched along through my life of, when I went to college, I really got into it, and I was super intimidated because. Actually, it was a little before that when I decided I wanted to play electric guitar. And my parents, it was like Dylan going electric. They were like, what?
Blasphemy.
And I was like, yeah, right. Total blasphemy. But the funny thing was I was a little intimidated. I didn't know like plugging in the guitar, the amp, the noise. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, which was really cool. I was fascinated by it, but there was like approach avoidance, fear, people saying stupid, mean things that happens to young women who want to do weird things. Anyway, so, and they're not weird at all. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, so I really went like crazy into it so that no one could knock me off my block. I knew all my stuff. I was like, don't mess with me. Yeah, I can do this. And it was because I was in the studio, as this kind of progressed, I was in the studio in college and, not in college, but during that time frame outside in this place. And I felt so frustrated. I felt like I couldn't control my universe. I couldn't make the sounds that I was hearing come out. And I couldn't, so I felt like I felt trapped. Like I couldn't operate the tools. It'd be like somebody never driving a car and just being driven everywhere. It just was awful. So that was kind of how I jumped in on the intensity level of ratcheting it up and getting into it. And then it just became like, that was it. I was like totally hooked. And I went from I straddled being on, we say called the other side of the glass, right? Because there's a glass inside the studio and the performers on one side and there's stuff on the other. And I kind of kept jumping back and forth. And then finally I was like, actually, it's kind of nice over here.
I like it back here.
Yeah. I don't have to, I can kind of pull strings and do stuff. And I don't have to always
it's a lot of control.
It was nice. So for once.
Do you think that this is a profession that's an apprenticeship? Like I believe that media is an apprenticeship. Like my career, it's actually similar in that, I started my career as a media buyer and I could always buy everything. And then I was like, well, I really don't want to buy it. I want to make it. And then I wanted to make it even more. And you kind of find yourself wandering down a path that gives you more control over creating things, which is really what you do. Do you 100%. Think that this is an apprenticeship?
So, I mean, it historically always has been. There were no audio schools back in the day, right? It was like you got lucky enough to end up working with somebody great and or somebody awful, and
Yeah.
your experience would be determined by that experience and whether or not you stayed in it or didn't stay in it. And predominantly, those people that got those apprenticeships were men and guys, and we just weren't allowed in the door. So as I didn't even know that some of these schools, they existed when I was graduating from college, which was in
5 years
a time
ago.
that started with a 19, right? Not in 2000,
but years back.
But anyway, a couple of years back, yeah. So those schools were, maybe they were just starting, and maybe there were a few, but like I didn't even know about them.
Yeah, totally. Low awareness.
There was completely. And I remember actually when I got a job in New York, my first job being an assistant engineer, general assistant kind of thing in a studio, and I was terribly abused, and they said terrible things to me, and it was horrible. And there was another assistant there who was a guy who was lovely, and he said to me, the magic words were, "Oh, they have a master's program at NYU. You can actually kind of create a program and study." And I was like, "What?" It was like, and I was totally grinding, grinding. And I was playing with my band and working, in a clothing store and killing myself to work in this studio and working on the weekends. And it was horrific. And I was like, program, master's degree, and NYU, really?
Like what?
And I went over there. Yeah, it was mind blowing to me. So again, that thing about the visibility of stuff and what's kind of given to you and put on your plate versus you just eating what's given to you or going and picking.
Yeah, that's right. And you've kind of done both, which is you just have seized the opportunity. You clearly had osmosis happening around music with you, and then you've seized it. Why are there so few women, and how is it improving or not improving?
This is again, my least favorite question, right? And it always comes down to this conversationally, and it's important, and it's not improving enough. And so that, I started an initiative called We Are Moving the Needle, and it is for women who want to be in the recording or any kind of technical side behind making an album in the recording industry. So producers, engineers, songwriters who do both of those things as well.
Yeah, you have a badass group of people involved in this.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that I've learned as I've kind of gone through this is that every single one of us have these crazy stories about not having the same chances. And it's almost miraculous that I do what I do. There's 2% of women behind the scenes in the Annenberg inclusion study was the big, kind of data point that I kept pulling upon, which is when I launched this thing on International Women's Day, because I was inspired by a person who owns a studio in Nashville, who also has an academy there for recording. This is also a relatively new idea to have these amazing academies for kids to go to, right? And so his name is John McBride. His wife is Martina McBride, the country star, and he had kind of reached out to me, and he said that he didn't have women applying to school, and I was like, that is unacceptable, and it's Me Too, and we're marching on Washington, and
everybody's wearing the pink
hats and all these things. What's happening? Well, how is that possible? And I'm doing every panel I can, and I'm talking, and I'm
so
being visible, and I'm so annoying, right? And it's yap, 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 not enough do. And that was my call to action to my friends who I reached out to, and then she's like, listen, no more yap, we have to fix this. And it just so happened that day that I launched We Are Moving the Needle, the Annenberg inclusion study came out, and it said that the number went from 2.6% to 2.2%. And I was like, it got worse. It actually got worse. Oh my God. Everything I knew in my heart possible? And what I was like, how is this possible? And I was like, enough, we're going to change this. We're going to educate these women. We're going to equip them with equipment. We're going to energize them with a rock star soundboard of people that are doing it and succeeding, to give them this alumni network. I had no mentors really. There was a very few, and not just no one. I couldn't reach up and be like, hey, no one, zero. There were some cool, there were a lot of hideous guys, but there were some really great men.
Some gems.
Yeah, there were some allies there that I love to shout out all the time, but great people that I actually have invited. I kind of invited all the men to participate with us, because we're not a women's organization, by the way. We are an organization
I hate
for change.
Yeah, totally. I hate that. It's so funny. I was thinking about this morning, that I'm like, I feel like I'm sometimes so lost, because there's the like women only, men suck, be pure, isolate, they condemn them, blah, blah, blah. There's that group. I'm not into that group. Then there's like the old boys club. I'm not in, that's like on their master's golf trip. I'm not into that group either.
Well, you're not invited, so it's a good thing. Well, yeah,
that's actually true. Not invited to that group. Correct. Actually, not invited to either group, to be honest. I'm by myself here.
I have to tell you, I've kind of straddled the same line, but my ethos is that this is not, we're not supposed to be so polarized, right?
No, you're like supposed to mix it up and learn from people.
Holistic world with all kinds of people. So
like bring on the range.
Yes. Exactly. And by the way, you can't solve problems by ignoring them.
Completely.
You know, it's like, I was trying to think to someone the other day, it's like, imagine yourself, you wake up and you're in a rowboat out at sea, and you're floating. There's a current, there's undercurrents, right? And it's pulling you in a direction. And you may say, I'll just go in this direction, right? I imagine the guys, they're just get in the boat and it's just going somewhere. How do they know? You know, it's like it's not their fault per se, but then there's the illuminated ones who wake up and go, yeah, no, I had a cool mom or a cool sister and this just doesn't feel right to me. And I'm going to paddle this way.
I'm going to put in some effort.
All of a sudden, I'm going to put some effort and I'm going to invent a motor, and we're going to actually motor and we're going to actually forget that. We're going to like choose a path.
Yeah.
Right. We're not just going to float based on the undercurrents that already exist. We're going to, and this applies to everything. It applies to, you know, relationships with people, races, businesses, all of it. It's like, you know, set your course, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Don't just float.
Don't be passive. That's right. Yeah. And you're clearly an embodiment of that. So you've worked with some of the biggest names. You worked with the Stones, you've worked with the Chainsmokers, you worked with John Mayer. Talk a little bit.
It was really small, you know, not very well known band called the Beatles too. Yeah. Right.
These guys probably haven't heard of them. We should explain to the good people who produce this podcast who the Beatles are. I'm kind of kidding, not really. Okay. And talk a little bit about like, what have you learned? Like, how have you gotten the best? You know, you're clearly at the top of your game. Like, what's your secret? Like, what have you learned? What have you failed at? What do you take with you?
Okay, so you fail all the time, every day, multiple times, and they're not failures. They're actually these really great moments because you're actually learning in those moments, right? Like you're actually figuring stuff out. You're progressing and you're growing. So I don't ever look at them as failures. I don't look at these things as moments that, you know, were, you know, utter screw ups, right? Yeah, I mean, they're just opportunities to do better the next time around. Now, of course, that sounds really, you know,
neat and tidy.
Yeah, and very zen, like that. I actually don't get upset.
Like you're not yelling "fuck" around the studio all day.
Of course, I get upset.
Like here.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yes, of course I get upset, and of course little things get under my skin, and I worry and I, you know, fret. But I don't think that actually gets you anywhere. So it's like a kind of I catch myself in this like that is colossally, you know, unproductive. And so I try to, and I don't have time. That's the other thing. Like I don't have time. I don't focus on like, how do you focus on all these things that are going to hold you back? When are you going to do all the stuff you're supposed to do?
Yeah, that's right.
If you do, I don't have time.
Yeah, that's
I wish it did. Like, so,
that'd be such a luxury.
Like, right. And I really want to say like the We Are Moving the Needle thing that I started is because I am so angry that this hasn't been solved yet. I started my studio when I was 25 years old, and it hasn't progressed enough for me to feel comfortable about it. So it was really just like, I had to do it. I felt like there was no way
to
just let it linger anymore.
Yeah.
So So yeah, same thing though in my studio. Like I started my studio kind of as a disruptor to what was happening in the industry. It was really different. My approach was different. My equipment choices for the most part were different. The environment that I tried to create was really more about a boutique creative collective place where artists want to hang out and make records. The other places that were around when I started were not
They're more factory-ish, or yeah,
they just weren't. Their vibe was missing. So and it's a really, like mastering an album is like delivering a baby. And the same way people get kind of caught up in like who's going to deliver their baby and what the room is going to look like and what the feeling is going to be. Those things are important. They make you feel comfortable and they make your experience different and qualitatively better or worse. And I think that has a lot to do with feeling comfortable. This goes back to me being in the studio and not feeling comfortable and having to learn everything so that I could feel comfortable. I always invite the people who are working with me to feel as comfortable as they possibly can. I don't care if they touch equipment. I don't care if they make suggestions. I invite it. I ask them for plenty of notes. And if they don't have any technical background, I ask them to, like dig deep. Tell me that this thing in your mind, when you were writing it, you were thinking that it should, sound like a pina colada, but it sounds like a, old fashioned, and it's just wrong. And I go like, that's a great example for me, because sure. I like both of those things and I can relate, and I can get like, okay, we got to go more pina colada here. And so like, to me, being able to create that dialogue and make people comfortable and allow them the space to do what they need to do is really important, while of course getting the job done.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Cross the finish line.
Yeah, it's amazing. Tell how people can join your organization, support your cause, get involved. Like give us the call to action.
Okay. So the main thrust here is for us to get money for scholarships for people who are disenfranchised and also just lost in this thing. So go to www.wearemovingtheneedle.org. We do lots of really cool things with lots of amazing people like Brittany Howard, Brandy Carlisle, Liz
Maggie
Fair.
Rogers.
That's Maggie Rogers. There's so many. I'm being terrible that I'm not picking out.
No, it's like the most badass, glorious group of women ever.
We have some new people that are joining that are amazing. They come like daily, like Vanessa Carlton, Christina Perry. There's Linda Perry, who's an amazing producer and engineer and artist. She was in Four Non Blondes. If you don't know her by her name, you know her by that.
They will also not know that show.
She makes records. She made
do you guys
records
know Four
for
Non
Christina
Blondes?
Aguilera.
Like what's going on?
No, it's a yeah.
Do you remember? Do you know the song?
And that's it. Like, hey, yeah, yeah.
Great
hey,
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She would kill me for
No, you're really good at this, Emily. I need an intro song. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay.
We got to.
That'd be amazing.
We Are Moving the Needle is going to actually
let's do it. All right, let's do it.
Your theme song.
That'd be amazing. Yeah. Okay.
We
you can do whatever you want. Just want a woman doing
for
it.
That.
Okay, that's awesome.
You have like 50 people, 50
the best.
Women, right?
Okay.
Why not?
Great.
Yeah, we're totally down.
All right, I love it. Thank you for doing this. You are awesome.
Oh my God, love you. I have 50 more things I want to talk to you about.
I know. I agree. Wait, let's get a drink one day.
Yes.
Okay, you're in New York, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have the people hook us up.
People meet the people.
Yeah, people can meet the people. Thank you so much. This is going to be awesome.
Thank you.
You're
so
the
great.
best. All right.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, cool. We'll talk to you later. Bye, Emily.
Bye, Rockstar.
Bye. I love it. Oh, she's so great. I love her. Okay, so for our one fucking good thing today, there's only one person who could carry this. That's Brandon fucking Walker, as he's officially known around here. Brandon showed up at work this morning and was wearing a wrestling suit, like an old school high school wrestling suit. I thought that he would be perfect, not only to have a high noon, but to talk about it. So for today's episode, he's going to give us what our one good thing is.
So my one big thing, well, I have two big things because I'm Brandon Walker. I don't do one thing. I had Chelsea Green on my wrestling podcast this week. It was awesome. She's a star. She's going to be incredible. And I don't know if you noticed, I've been waking up at 5:30, working out every morning with a personal trainer. Jacked. That's why I dress like this every day now. Going to be like this from now on, so get used to it. Those are my two big things.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Huge thanks to Emily for joining us. If you are interested, go get our NFT. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, or give us a review. Next week, we are doing another 5K, so sign up for the Cinco de Mayo run. You can do that in my bio. We have the NFL, we spell it out here. We have our NFL draft show tonight. It's only on Barstool. We've got a bunch of great guests lined up. We've got all of our gamblers and our sports people doing a live stream here at HQ. I'm at EKA Nardini. Token CEO is on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we'll see you back here on Tuesday.